Good morning, everyone. I'm June Riley, founder and CEO of VC Task Force. Welcome. Today is one of our programs called Gary's Picks, and Gary will interview Frank Monaco. And Gary is known for his exciting interviews, and I'm really looking forward to this one. So take it away, Gary.
Great to be here. Thanks, everybody. And it's great to be one more time Gary's Picks. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've been involved in 17 startups and several unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. Today, Frank, it's great to have you here today. So a little bit about Frank. So he's an award-winning payments pioneer with over 20 years worth of experience developing, scaling, and restructuring businesses globally. He's been responsible for teams up to 350 across 35 countries with over 300 million in revenue. So, and where are you today, by the way, Frank? Are you in Toronto or are you in Calgary?
I'm in Toronto today, Gary.
What's the weather like in Toronto?
Today's a beautiful day, actually. It's bright and sunny, so no complaints on my end.
And it's I'll never forget one time, Frank, I took a plane. We flew a twin engine plane from Buffalo, and we started having problems, and somebody over top of the lake, somebody said, this is kind of like the Bermuda Triangle up here. And I got really spooked. And we had to do an emergency landing back in Buffalo, New York, because our defroster came off our windshield. But I was like, anyhow, what a wonderful place. I got to tell you, and especially in the summer, one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Just a really, really nice place to be. So how do you go from civil engineering? You start out in civil engineering, then you went to University of Toronto to Rodman. But how do you go from civil engineering to becoming an entrepreneur?
Oh, well, I think it stems from from my love of architecture, to be honest with you. In the very early days, I always had this dream that I was going to be a bridge builder, and I kind of went in that route. And the truth is, life steers you sometimes in different directions. And somehow I found myself building bridges all over the world, interconnecting consumers and product providers and merchants, and kind of on the back of this payments technology piece. So, it's funny how those things happen. But a lot of the things that you learn, through the experience in studying engineering, for example, is really how to make things work. And I think that lines up quite nicely with what you're doing with GSD, to be honest with you, because you got to get shit done to get things to work. And that's kind of how I ended up here.
Yeah, sometimes we forget about getting shit done and we just build things.
That's right.
So you were senior vice president and general manager of, you've been at places like Stored Value. So how did you go down through, when did the entrepreneurial bug hit you? And did all of a sudden one day you say, oh, geez, I like this, but I think I'm going to really get into building startups?
Well, the last 20 some odd years of my career has really been starting up new businesses in new markets. So, unlike some folks in the venture world where they've had to raise cap, I've done it for companies that, had quite a bit of capital and were looking to expand their offerings across the globe. So I've always had the opportunity to kind of stretch that entrepreneurial muscle. And I found that through the years, especially as we entered into new markets and spaces, when you're introducing new forms of payment and new technologies, you're going to run into companies that are, in that kind of startup entrepreneurial phase, and you got to be in that space. And I fell in love with the concepts of doing that, and I had the opportunity to do it in the work that I was doing. And so once I decided to kind of step out of the corporate life and write the next chapter, this became just a natural fit for me.
And so if you're going down through it, you've done a lot of different things. How did you ever get in Sugar Mobile?
So I'm an ex-telecom guy. I kind of started in the telecom industry way back when. And also being a Canadian, some of you may or may not know this, but Canada's got some of the highest telecom rates, consumer rates in the world. And through those relationships that I've maintained throughout the year, I'm a big proponent of trying to, keep relationships intact with people. You never know when you kind of run through. And so I'm a big relationship guy. Just had some conversations over dinner with a few friends within that industry. And, we thought, hey, maybe there's a way that we can disrupt things. And so we created the first mobile network virtual operator, kind of a hybrid in Canada, because there are some legislative and regulatory pieces there, but really the first model of its kind in the market, and had some good traction for quite some time. But unfortunately, this market is controlled by 3 mega players, and the truth is that we were the little guys making a lot of noise, and we got pushed out of the mix.
And so you got places like Rogers and companies like that are in Canada. So it's interesting. Sometimes we forget how much power people really have, right?
Absolutely.
And so you've gone down through it, and how did you work Prepaid Nation? What did you go to Philadelphia one day and say, oh, I'm gonna do Prepaid Nation? And what was that all about?
No, I actually met the founders of PPN at an event that I was part of, hosting actually a number of years prior. And they were expanding their business. They're in the telecom business again, really prepaid PIN distribution, interconnecting telecom companies and providing long distance programs and other things along those lines. We struck up a good conversation. They were looking at further expansion globally. That's kind of my thing, what I've been doing for years and years at scale. And so, I just offered some friendly advice, kept in touch, and as they were developing things and looking at new market expansion, otherwise, from time to time, we'd have chats. And the truth is after I left my corporate job, I decided to take some time off and enjoy family time for a better part of about 6 or 7 months. One of the founders just was very persistent in saying, "Can you come help us for a little bit?" And that's kind of how I got there. And I really helped them kind of restructure the business as they were looking to potentially exit. But then they made a choice that was right for themselves to stay in it and continue to grow on the plans that we'd created. And so for me, it was a good time to step away, to be honest with you. It wasn't my thing for a long term. It was kind of a short term and get the wheels turning again within that space.
No, that's great. And so then, and you've been a seed investor, PAYD and ROBOEATZ. If you look at it, what's your biggest opportunity? You invested in a company. What was the biggest exit that you've had? Have you had any big exits yet?
No, most of the stuff, I really took an angel position. I think the biggest exit was when I exited my previous role. I had some equity in that, and we made some arrangements along those lines, so that I was able to capitalize on that. But the truth is that a lot of the seed investing and angel investing, part of the fun is working with early stage startups and help them contemplate go-to-market strategy. How do we scale it? How do we do all these things? And the one area that I didn't have much experience in, not at small scale, early stage, more in when you're established with a base, larger deal structures, was in capital raising. And so I thought this would be a good way to enter in that as an angel investor, help utilize some of the experience and context that I had to help these really innovative concepts get off the ground. And so I'm happy to say they're all working and gaining traction and moving forward. But the one thing I learned too is it's a long journey. It takes a lot of time. It's a very different experience. You'd know this better than anybody, Gary, from working in a corporate environment where you're taking a concept and expanding it outwards, where you've got backing and funding and you can leverage a bunch of things, to I've got a great idea to make something or solve a problem, maybe better than someone else, and I've got to start that journey from the ground up. It's a very different experience and one that can be extremely rewarding, but it's also very challenging.
Yeah, and it takes a long time sometimes, 7 years on average, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
You go down through. What about KKR? How in the world did you get in KKR?
So because of my experience within the payments industry, I get a lot of reach out from time to time, especially when there's activities going on within the market, to lend, essentially my experience and background to assess opportunities for deals. And so I've worked with a couple of private equities in the past. That's kind of how it fell into my lap, right? The phone rings sometimes and opportunities present themselves. And I think it's important to jump on them when they're there.
It's interesting. Okay, so, and what, I gotta be honest with you. What do people do for fun in Toronto in the summertime? I know they go to the lake, but what do they do? Because it's like, it's a beautiful place. But when I talk to my buddy all year long, he's talking to me about the 2 months he gets to ride his motorcycle, or 3 months in Canada. And the rest of the time he's talking about it. And then, and if you're listening, Gregory, it's you. And then I call him up and he's not riding his motorcycle. He's like, but he talks about it all year long. What do people do for fun?
So listen, we got a vibrant city here. I mean, there's festivals, there's food festivals, street festivals. We've got an amazing arts, sector, a lot like New York City, right? So if you think about New York City and all the activities that go on, I would say we're the smaller version of that. So everything from hiking to parks, an hour and a half outside of the city, you can be on a lake and on a beach. Matter of fact, I think if I recall correctly, we have one of the largest sand freshwater beaches in North America. And that's almost in the pretty much 15 minutes from the downtown core of Toronto. So there's so many things for you to do. It's really pick your poison.
And so you go out, you do that, but you were living in Calgary, or is a company in Calgary now? I know that you've got some connection with Calgary.
Yeah, so Tua Financial is a Calgary-based company. It started in Calgary. Our offices are based in Calgary, and the majority of staff are there. I'm the only one that's not based. I'll travel back and forth from that standpoint, but that's kind of where the origins of the business started. It was founded by a gentleman by the name of Bob Christensen, who's still with us and focuses predominantly on investment capital and working with existing shareholders and looking for new potential investors as well. But that's the connection to Calgary.
Yeah, no, my experience, first of all, I got a couple of really good friends that are in Calgary, but I remember when I went up there one time, it was in the middle of the winter. And when I got off the plane, I went down and rented a car, and they had a wire sticking out of the radiator. Yeah. And I thought, oh my God, they gave me the bum rap here. This thing is, they gave me a bad car. There's the wiring harness or something screwed up on it. And I go in because I had never seen anything like it before. I said, excuse me, there's a receptacle hanging out of my car. Can you help me with this thing? He said, well, no, it's supposed to be there. I said, for what? Well, that's an engine block heat or something. And I'm like, what? And so I plugged the car in. And then I remember going up in July, and there was a thing called the Stampede happening.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most amazing kind of like throwback event. I've a wild throwback event I ever seen in my life. It's just beautiful. And then Banff, just an unbelievable place. Actually.
I tell you that funny enough, I have a similar story and experience, but in Manitoba. So substitute Calgary for Manitoba with the block heater. So your engine doesn't freeze because of how cold it gets. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, we're so fortunate that we live in a country here that has just so much diversity, and so many outdoor spaces that are, I mean, literally picturesque. Calgary's a great town, great people. The truth is that coast to coast in this country, you're going to find some amazing people, as you will in the United States. I spent a lot of time in the United States as well. I lived in the US for a number of years before I came back to Canada. We share a lot of similarities, let's put it that way, between our two.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing place. So tell us a little bit about Tua. So what's happening with Tua, and where are you today?
Well, Tua is really focused in on helping essential services providers offer up fixed payment loans to consumers. And when I talk about that, really, there's 4 verticals that we're focused on at the moment, which is dental care, optometry, veterinarian care, and auto service and repair. And Gary, it's interesting because you probably wouldn't know this, but last year alone, over $400 billion was spent in out-of-pocket expenses by consumers in the United States for those particular verticals. And that's when, that's after insurance, that's after all that. And so as Tua, we found an opportunity.
I can tell you, I'm spending $10,000 plus myself per year with all the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And if you think about it, there's there's almost 130 million Americans. It's about 30% of the population, that are struggling to kind of make those ends meet. They're making decisions between whether they've got to fix a broken tooth or they've got to, buy groceries. And we shouldn't be in that situation. And so our real vision and focus is around providing the help for those individuals within that essential services space to help live better, healthier lives and create a better financial future. So we partner with community banks to provide the lending capital. We offer up fixed term loans that are fit for purpose for those particular essential service verticals. And, and we try to do so at rates that are up to 30% less than what you would pay for a traditional credit card, with no hidden fees and, complete transparency. And so, we think we've got something that can really actually help people in their lives and help build, a better financial scenario for those individuals that need them. And like I said, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, it's amazing. So how do you go down through and with your business, where is it today and where do you look at it next year and the year after? How much traction do you have?
Yeah, so we officially launched a pilot just over 12 months ago, just about a little north of a year ago. We integrated our solution within one of the biggest payments providers, acquirers in the United States, a company called Global Payments. And so we are able to process these transactions through the existing infrastructure that these merchants have and are accepting payments today. And so it's an assisted type of sales process. We launched initially with a handful of merchants as a test. Over the last 3 months, we have started to scale that up. We're adding about 10 merchants per week at the moment, and we've got some traction. We're seeing loans increase on a monthly basis, roughly between 10 and 15%. We believe that in the next year or so, we should have north of 1,400 merchants. We've got partnerships with other acquirers as well that have just been inked and signed. So we've got a lot of movement, but we're really just at the start of what's going to be something amazing.
Yeah. So if you look at it, how many competitors do you have in the market today?
So there's a number of folks that play in the space in different ways, and traditional, what they call buy now, pay later solutions that are offered by companies like Affirm and Zezzle. The functionality that they offer is similar to what we do, but not exactly what we do. And in those particular cases, those programs, those types of products and services are really focused more on physical goods. There are some players as well that focus predominantly within the healthcare space. But again, the solutions that they provide usually have hidden fee structures to them, late penalties, tend to be relatively expensive from that standpoint. And they are uncoupled. They're usually not integrated within any payments process flow. So within our solution, number one, from a merchant perspective, it functions the same way or very similar to the way you would work with your credit card acquirer, provider, or otherwise from a technological standpoint. From a consumer standpoint, it's a solution that offers up products and services and approvals within seconds, as opposed to potentially minutes, hours, or even days in some instances. So we're really excited about this, what I call the first step, but we also believe there's other opportunities for us to expand, not just vertically speaking, but also to integrate new technologies. And you'd know about this better than anybody as well. Gary, we've talked about it a little bit, but utilize generative AI technology to be able to enhance the product sets and offer up solutions that are tailored to the individual based on what's best for them, as opposed to what's best for the company that's offering it. So I think those are the disruptive points that we're working towards here. And the next year is going to be one hell of a ride, but the years after that, that's when things change.
No, that's fantastic. And what are your plans for growth? Where are you going to go? So you were talking about, you've got the Canadian market, US market. Where else are you going to go?
Well, right now we're focused in on the US, and we are currently originating and have generated loans in more than 45 states. We're set up to go coast to coast, 50 states. That's another element that I failed to mention earlier in terms of an advantage of our operating model. We do that through partnerships to service. So we'll be focusing in there. We're keenly focused in on the verticals that I've outlined to you, but as kind of a next step in growth, we want to look at home servicing as another opportunity to continue to grow out. And so we're going to expand verticals. We're also interested, as I said, to enhance some of the technology stacks to provide more intuitive, let's say, products, more customized solutions to the consumer. Again, part of our ethos is to provide financial health, not just physical health and well-being. And then from there, we think there's opportunities to expand out. Obviously, Canada's a market of interest where, that's kind of where the roots are, and we'll look at furthering pushing into
Difference,
North
Frank,
American
like
markets.
the Canadian market, do they have the same problem that the Americans have with having paying for healthcare? Because I know you got nationalized healthcare. How does it work?
Yeah, in some verticals, yes. I mean, insurance is insurance. So in the dental vertical, there is out of pocket. There are legislative changes that have been instituted most recently to help, let's say, the younger generation from an affordability standpoint on the dental side of the business. But we have similar issues, but the market is much smaller, right? You're talking about a 40 million base of consumers versus north of 330 million, right? So it's a much bigger market south of the border. And the truth is that, even though the Canadian market is growing and will continue to grow, it's estimated that we'll reach 50 million, depending on what happens in the next election cycle here. But, we'll be about 50 million strong here within the next 10 years. So the country's growing. That means more people coming in. It means, the requirement more help. So there's definitely an opportunity there, but there's so much ground to cover in the US. The truth is that, there's a lot of road to till. And then there are other markets that could be of great deal of interest as well in Europe and elsewhere. So we think what we've got is portable, in all candor. But we're really intently focused on solving the biggest problem that we see in front of us at the moment.
You've been through a lot in terms of doing the startup. So if you had three things that you could tell young entrepreneurs that listen to our show about how to build a successful startup, what would those three things be?
Focus, persistence. I think that's the biggest one. Put those two together. And value. And the value part of it is just really understand what the value is that you're bringing to this and stick to it. You get a lot of people that push you in different directions and opportunity. Know what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, stay true to that, and be very focused on the goals that you set out, and no matter what challenges you get put in front of you, plow through them. That's the best advice I can give you.
And what's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you? LinkedIn, Facebook, email? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. You can reach out to us through our website at tuafinancial.com, or you can reach out to me via my LinkedIn, which you'll find me at Frank Monaco on LinkedIn. Those are probably the two best ways to be able to get in touch with me.
That's great. Frank, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule today and joining us. And thanks to all my audience out there for listening one more time to Gary's Picks. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. We'll be back to you again in another 2 weeks of another exciting edition. June, do you have any final words?
Hold on a second. I'll be with you.
She's going to be coming out of the water, Frank.
No.
The lady of the water. Come on.
Here I am. Yes. Thank you so much, Gary and Frank. This is such a great service. I love what you're doing. And again, you're another person I want to contact afterwards, because I think I have a couple of people that I'd like to introduce you to. So let's have a talk after. So Gary, again, thank you. It's another really delightful interview. We got a lot of really great information about so many different things. So it's always a pleasure to listen. So thank you, and everybody join us in a couple of weeks for another Gary's Picks.
Thank
Take
you.
care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.